Before I fit these panels, I want to give them a treatment. Let's make some rust. Coming up. How's it, yokes, and welcome back. So yeah, in a previous video, I assembled the front part of my budget rat truck build. Now I would like to get the load bed panels in place. But before I do that, I want to create a rusty patina on these panels to match the rest of the truck. There's two different methods I'd like to compare, and one of them I've never tried before. So let's get into some chemical experimentations. So this is the key ingredient in the first method I want to try: hydrogen peroxide. I found this tiny little bottle in my wife's first aid cabinet. I see it's 10% volume, but that's not enough, man. Then I got this big container from a friend. Now it's 35%, that's seriously potent. You zoom in here. You can see it says 35%, this one is 10%. And the info I got on the internet says you only need 3%. So I don't know, I might be on my way to building a bomb here. Let's find out. I did read that this stuff over time does lose its potency. I see this batch was made in, where did I see today? 2016. So I don't know, it might not even work. Let's find out. The recipe I found on the internet calls for 2 cups of the hydrogen peroxide at 3%. I've got some old expired 35%, so let's see if it works. It wants, what was it, 4 tablespoons of vinegar and half a teaspoon of salt. I stole this from my wife's cupboard. Please don't tell her. I'm going to try and sneak it back without her even knowing about it. She loves to use this stuff for cleaning windows, and it actually does work very well. So I was a bachelor for many years, and because of my vast cooking experience, I'm actually going to adapt this recipe a little bit. First of all, I'm going to increase the salt content. I mean, we do like our salt, don't we? So I'm changing it, 2 cups of the hydrogen peroxide, 4 tablespoons of the vinegar, and 1 full teaspoon of the salt. And then I'm also going to add 2 eggs to the recipe. I mean, any decent cooking requires eggs, man. Stay. My egg wants to roll away. There we go. So the very first step in the preparation of this concoction is to take one of the eggs and peel it. What you then do is you can add a little bit of salt to the egg, if you like your egg salty, and eat it. This is very important because you do require the fortification that the additional protein intake provides for what is about to follow. I forgot to mention something. You have to hard boil the eggs before you do this, otherwise it becomes a bit of a mess. The other egg remains in standby for later down the line if required. So I've added all my measured ingredients to an old yogurt container, except the egg, and I'm just mixing it up. And then I'm going to put it into a spray bottle. So the second brew I'm going to use is this stuff straight up. Standard pool acid or hydrochloric acid. I've already put some in this spray bottle. HCI is the abbreviation for hydrochloric acid. H2O2 is for the hydrogen peroxide. That's a difficult word for me to say. So I've got my 2 weapons of choice ready. How am I supposed to talk with this thing on? So let me add the politically correct disclaimer. Yokes all have a lot of common sense, I'm sure. So here's another politically correct word. Please use the PPE as you see fit. The stuff can burn your skin. Don't call me when you're hurting. My skin is like leather, so don't try this. But see how that peroxide stuff has bleached my skin here. So at least it's still working. So I've put my panel out here in the sun, figuring that heat is always good for a bit of chemical reactions. Oh, and I've kept a hard hat just in case a bird comes by. So I've got the peroxide solution here. I've never tried this before, so I'm quite excited to see how it's going to work. Let's give it a shot. Well, this is real time, and that's quite actually amazing. It's almost an instantaneous reaction. I think I'm going to spray the one half of this panel with the peroxide and the other half with the pool acid, and then we can compare. How about that, eh? It's reacting very fast. Quite exciting. Okay, no time lapse, so let's see. It's acting quite quickly, eh? Look at that. Okay, let's try the pool acid on this side. Stuff smells like rotten eggs. The reaction is definitely not as instantaneous or as violent, but let's leave it for a while and see what happens. So 15 minutes later, and the pool acid has actually done a great job of removing rust. It's all dried out now in the sun. I'm going to wipe it down with a wet rag and see what happens. So let's give that some chance to work and have a look at that peroxide on the other side. So here's the peroxide 15 minutes later. It's a sort of not a deep rust, but it certainly created impressive results. There's a few spots where it is not reacted. I think maybe I'll give it another spray down. Violent reaction, eh? Love it! So another 10 minutes later maybe, that's completely dried out. And here on the pool acid side, it's a little bit of rust starting to form, but not much. Maybe my potions are drying out too quickly in the sun here. Let's just go and put this in the shade to see what happens. So it's been about an hour since I brought it inside. I cleaned the shop up some. I have to do that too. So here on the left hand side you can see that's the peroxide. It's very much of an orangey surface rust. Does not match the deep brown rust like we see in the background on the truck. There on the right hand side, where I used the pool acid, things are happening much slower, but we are starting to see some rust happening. So I'm just wondering now if I wipe this off with a wet rag, what it'll look like. So I'm going to wipe this orange rust off so that we can see what we've got underneath. So the pool acid side seems disappointing in comparison, doesn't it? But I've used this before in the past, and it does actually need a few days to develop actually quite a nice rust. Let me just get a piece and show you. See this section here on the end? That was new steel that I added. This is the old original rust from many years. So what I did here was I did the pool acid treatment and forgot about it for a few days, and that's what it looks like now. It's a really good match. I like it a lot. So back here to my panel. So yes, the pool acid is slow, but it would seem to me that it will over time actually create a nice deep rust. Another thing to keep in mind is you only have to apply one thin coat of the pool acid, and then you must actually wipe it off with a wet rag. Maybe wipe it again with a wet rag. If I apply it on here, let's spray some on here. You will see it actually removes rust. So I'm no chemist, I don't know how it all works. But the pool acid removes rust very well. But if you put it on, let it dry for a while, wipe it off with a wet rag and leave it, it creates a good rust as well. You can see here, look how the pool acid is eating the metal back to a bare metal and removing the rust. Look at that. Don't touch that stuff, eh? It will burn the skin on your fingers. My hands, they are like the feet of a bushman who's been wandering bare feet through the deserts for a lifetime. So they don't count. Back to square one. My single application of the pool acid cleaned the metal here very nicely back to the grey color. But if I now just wipe it with my wet rag, leave it for a while, it's going to start rusting up again quite nicely. So the peroxide thing is a lot more fun though. So I think I'm just going to whack this whole thing with the peroxide. And I'm actually quite convinced that if you do several applications, the rust will deepen a lot. That's the right word, deepen. Get a darker color, you know what I mean. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it a nice application, let it dry, do it again, and maybe even repeat it a few times so I can get this rust to really go to work. This is exciting though. I mean, it's right in front of your eyes. Look at that. Wow. Look at all this action. The white part is some paint that I left. The rest of it is the peroxide bubbling and making foam and goodness knows what all. So I've done all my parts now. This is actually maybe like the third application. I'm going to leave them outside here overnight so that they can mature a little bit. And then we can see what they look like tomorrow. I got busy with some other things, so my panels have actually been stewing out here in the weather for quite a few days. And I think I'm going to leave them out here until I'm ready to fit them back onto the truck, by which time I'll process them a little bit further. So I think you will agree with me that this method works quite well to get the rust going. I'm quite happy. So thanks for spending time with me. I enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, have a lucky one.